Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Look at that. The mic was not on. Okay. All right. Here we go. One more time from the top. Hello. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. And today we will be having Rachel on the show today, Rachel Lang. And she is an astrologist. She is a psychic medium. She is a teacher. And she really has so many tips about energy and wellness. And my goodness, I'm going to love to pick her brain today. What a fantastically interesting day. I was about ready to turn on my light, and I don't even think my outlet is working. So maybe we got a microphone glitch going on too. It's just the way that it happens sometimes. It just is. So what I want to get into as a topic of the day is looking at the bigger picture. So the energy is the full picture, our full spirit. And I think a lot of times within ourself or with other people, we look at just what's on the surface or just the few things that we know. And we could even know that someone's a full person, like they have emotions, they have thoughts, they have hobbies, they have interests, they're kind, they're compassionate. There could be all these layers, right? But as a full soul, we're really unlimited. And it'll be really interesting to talk to Rachel today because as a soul as well, we come down to the earth, we incarnate, and we take on a life path. We take on a contract and we have certain identities. That's why it's like, I'm Kelly Brickle for this lifetime. Who knows who I'm going to be in the next lifetime? That's up to me, and that's up to some other factors, I'm sure. Who will you be in the next lifetime? And as Kelly Brickle, I have a certain chart, a certain numerology chart, a certain astrological chart with all these correlations that make up my energy. And a lot of times when we start diving in to learning about what our energy is, and then we get so fascinated with astrology and numerology, we go, oh, like I'm a life path one, right? Like I'm a life path one. Who are you? Or I'm a Leo, right? Who are you? Are you an Aquarius? Okay. And there's so much more to it. That life path number, that sun sign that you have, it's so much, it's just the surface. It's just the surface. And so it makes things very exciting because we can really connect to all these answers and really have this tremendous guidance and this curiosity that unfolds within us. And hopefully we can apply the same to other people. And I want to say really quick to everyone who's in the room right now, Sharon, hi. Janice, hi. Nicole, Kevin, thank you everyone for coming. And please, we're going to be taking a lot of questions about astrology and energy today. So if you have a question about it, when we get Rachel in here in about 10 minutes or so, we'll ask her and it'll be really insightful. So if you have a question, just pop it down. and we'll take them towards the end of the show, and away we go with that. But I encourage you to know that there's so much more to who we are as people than just one specific number or one specific, classification, like your sun sign, if you're a Leo, your life path, if you're like a 2 or a 3, right? There's just so much more. And to look at another person the same way, depending on their cycles, depending on what they're going through in life, they're going to engage and enact different energy patterns within them, choices, and curiosities. I think one of the ways, it helps stimulate this idea in me for today is I was having a conversation with one of my friends yesterday. And I felt pretty neutral, right? As the conversation was happening, but then we were sharing about our life. We were sharing about what has been happening within our lives over the past 3 months. And so I recalled a story about reconnecting with a friend. And I was aware of all the different types of energies that came up in me. And I was aware of like this whole other part of my personality that wasn't really being stimulated and tapped into because I could really compartmentalize those emotions or those thoughts with how busy my life was, with, everything that I was up to. Like I didn't really have to focus on that, but it was really a very important part of who I was, processing, connecting to that person, processing how I felt about the relationship, and even the type of person I was in that specific relationship. And that was all connected to my, you could say, karma, my energy, my life path, my numbers, and how it correlated to her chart, and just really who I am as a person on a larger, bigger picture. But sometimes we don't, excuse me, sometimes we don't have um, enough moments in our life to really engage the different parts of ourselves. So I encourage you, with other people, within yourself, kind of sit down and go, all right, what what things make up who I am? Um, there's so very much more to me. So what more am I? What more am I? And I know it's a simple question and a very ambiguous question, but a lot of times we go through the day and we might be bored, or we might be scratching our head, or we might be even frustrated with another person. And it's really, there's so much more at play than we give ourselves credit for and what we see in other people. There's worlds of energy going on. And so I want to give that to you, and to know that you can almost create a remembrance of connecting to your past, maybe who you were before, a remembrance of maybe who you were when you were a child. Are those qualities still in effect for you today? Are you completely different than who you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Or even back to when you were little? Do you still do you still operate from the same choices, the same curiosities, the same passions? How much are you different? How much are you the same? And what combination of those moments led you to who you are right now? And have you compartmentalized things? Or have you just built upon those things and you feel like you're very much more expanded? And it really invites, consciously and subconsciously, when you ask a question, how much more am I, or really who am I, and you compare, your past to now, it really opens up an endless opportunity for spiritual development. You could keep going. You could keep going to every facet of your life. Wow, how does this apply? What have I learned? Who am I? So Janice says, I apparently need water today. So forgive me if I'm like moving my my throat a little bit around. So Janice says, yeah, that's good, actually, asking questions to ourselves and answering honestly, because many times we lie to ourselves. Oh, interesting. Yeah, we there's a collection of things that we say to ourselves. Sometimes we lie to ourselves directly, and sometimes we lie to ourselves and we don't even realize it. or we have certain belief systems or identities that we just learn to take on when really maybe it's a lie to what we want, what we prefer, what we would even choose, right? So there's a lot of reasons behind our inner workings and why we are the way we are. Um, kind of at the most simplistic kind of example I can think. Sometimes after a day of work, I like games. I'm a gamer. I'm not like on every day, like gotta get my gaming fix, but I do really enjoy like video games. I do. It's a fun part of my childhood. I was brought up with video games. My brother used to play a lot, and he taught me how to play, and a lot of my friends played. So that childhood wonderment and curiosity and um, gets to still be played out through the way that I play video games. And so there's like puzzles, there's stories, there's character arcs and building, and there's all this flexibility within the world or within the character you can choose sometimes. So it's very, very neat. I could go in and into it, absolutely. But I'll find myself, maybe I will go, I'm gonna look into a shoe sale, or I have to construct a class, or I have to, I better catch up and cook some dinner, and then that way I can be ahead for the week. So, I have all these thoughts of what make up my normal day, and those are kind of some things in it at times. And I might think like, okay, the greatest thing that I need right now is just a little bit of fun or a little bit of joy. And I'll be thinking like, hey, I kind of would rather just play a video game right now, but maybe I do have to do some course creation. Maybe I have to go and type up someone's numerology chart. Maybe I have to go cook dinner. And I find like wherever my truth is the strongest, if I keep kind of putting it off, even if I do it for 30 minutes, a part of me goes, okay, I'm not fulfilled, right? Not that we need instant gratification, not at all, but are we shoving down parts of ourselves that we need to be the fullest parts of who we are? And for me, joy really fills me up. And if I find that I like to work really hard, but if I find that my joy meter isn't balanced, I start to get a little stiff and I start to cram it in towards the end of my day. And then all of a sudden, my time management just goes wah, 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 or I don't get to sleep at, the right hour. So it really unbalances me. And we all have these parts of ourselves that help with making us the happiest. We all have these parts of ourselves that make us feel full and alive. Some people have their joy meter filled, but they're bored. Or some people have their curiosity meter filled, but they don't have their friendship meter filled, or they don't have their love meter filled. So, we have these longings, we have these energies within us. And it's really important to not only go, okay, who am I, but what are my driving factors? And we start to like peel the layers back of ourselves, and we start to go deeper. And a lot of those kind of aha moments can come through chart exploration, whether numerology or astrology or other systems. And it's so much more than the sun sign. I'm so much more than, I'm Kelly with brown hair and glasses. It's like that. So I implore you to look at yourself that way when thinking about energy. If know that it goes so much deeper than just some fundamental principles, and know that it goes so much deeper always for others as well. So we'll be back in a moment. We are going to go to a break and then bring in the lovely Rachel Lang, and we will see you in a moment.
Would you like to be a part of something new, something different? Host a show with WLTK-DB Talk Radio and dare to be different. We offer full production and live engineering of your show by a real person, not a pesky computer. Just visit WLTK-DB.com and click pricing to get started. It's not as much as you think and a great way for you to get your message to the world. Better hurry. Slots fill up fast and you don't want to miss out on this excellent opportunity. Visit WLTK-DB.com and contact us for more information now. WLTK-DB Talk Radio. Paranormal talk is our business, and business is good. From its beginnings, Used was created to unleash the excellence of nature's healing powers and bring them to people everywhere. With almost 90 years in the market, they are considered a worldwide pioneer in complete herbal wellness therapy. All Swiss Used products are natural, essential oil-based, pleasant, and harmonious. They are extracted from plants and herbs with the latest technology to ensure the best results. Swiss Used Live Healthy with consultant Stephanie will guide you in the right direction to find the perfect essential products just for you. For example, have an upset tummy? Try our soothing chamomile that has not only been used by many, but trusted for years. Keep in mind, you just can't get these amazing oils at your local shopping center. They're just too special. For that, you need a connection. And that connection is Stephanie. Want some? Then head on over to Facebook and search Swiss Used Live Healthy. That's Swiss Used Live Healthy. And contact Stephanie today.
Hello, and welcome back to the Psychic Hour. We are having Rachel Lang as our guest today, and let's bring her in and welcome her. Ooh, my lighting today is a little crazy. So, hey, Rachel.
Hey, Kelly, it's so good to be here.
It's excellent to have you. Let me introduce you to everyone, just coming in and getting to know you. So Rachel Lang is an astrologer, psychic medium, speaker, and author of the book Modern Day Magic: 8 Simple Rules to Realize Your Power and Shape Your Life. You can catch Rachel teaching astrology principles and insights or sharing her skills with intuition and energy via workshops, business consultations, or one-on-one sessions. Welcome, Rachel.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. I think it's so cool that you have so many tools under your belt with who you are and what you can bring to others. Obviously, I've heard you talk about astrology, because that is, I think, the main way people know you. But you really, you come from different backgrounds where, you attach to your work human rights and psychic mediumship and also like energy principles. And so can you kind of talk about why you feel so connected to so many different parts in your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think some of it can be answered astrologically. I have a Gemini moon. I'm like insatiably curious. What is your sign, Kelly? I don't think I know this. I don't know your chart.
What, like my moon? My moon?
Or your or your sun, or your.
So I'm a Leo moon, Leo sun, and a Gemini rising ascent.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's coming up in 3 days. Yeah, thank you.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah,
okay,
I don't come across as a Leo so much, but I am.
Every Leo I know and I've worked with says the same thing. Because you read the textbook description for what Leo is, and it's like center of attention, front and center, always wanting to take the spotlight. And that's actually a very small percentage of Leo people. Most Leos, it's, first of all, our sun signs are not, they're what we're really learning to become in this lifetime. And so a lot of us take the signatures and the characteristics of our sun sign and feel like it's a part of us, but not the whole. And so it's like you were saying at the beginning, we have so many different aspects to our personalities. But within every Leo, Leos are here to work through lessons of personal fulfillment versus external validation. And so a lot of Leos, you have to feel passionate about what you're talking about in order to take the spotlight. And it's like the spotlight finds you. You don't always ask for it or step into it easily. Like a lot of Leos I know really like being behind the scenes until it's their time to shine.
Yeah. I think, it's not what it always seems like. For instance, I think about what a classic example of a Leo is more someone's maybe ascendant sign, like Beyonce, I think, is a Leo ascendant. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
well, bam, right? Queen Bee, like Leo.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But maybe not so much like the moon sign or the sun sign, maybe not so much. But it's interesting like that. I remember you have Scorpio in you. I remember like you have Scorpio, one of your, where is it?
I have some Scorpio placements. I'm a Libra sun, Gemini moon. I have Venus and Mars in Scorpio as well. So there's Scorpio there.
Venus and Mars and Scorpio. I just remember I had like a conversation with you, and I think I asked you, and we were talking about like Scorpio energy, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, and things like that. I always I love astrology. It's not my wheelhouse. I'll do a lot of, like research on the side, and I'll learn things, and it kind of like stimulates me, right? But my goodness, there's just so many parts to it. That's why I think I just stick with numerology more in some other places. But I find so much about a person is through their Venus. I really, it's not just about like romantic love. It's really how they feel validated and how they just feel loved and appreciated in general. So I actually do love learning about someone's Venus sign, and I kind of go, oh, this is a really important part of you. Okay, now I know how to make you smile a little bit more.
Yeah. And Venus, I think you bring up a good point, and that is that, Venus is the planet of magnetic attraction. And so Venus also relates to how we draw into our lives what we want, whether it's love, whether it's abundance, whether it's the stuff of our lives. And so Venus is that magnetic attractor. And when we're talking about Venus, we're talking about our personal style, how we dress, the colors we like to wear. We're also talking about self-worth. So those principles of, do I deserve love? Am I willing to ask for what I need in a relationship, in a job, in a client practice? So Venus is a really important aspect of someone's chart.
That's really fascinating. So you talked about the colors people wear is even correlated with that. What are some examples? You had me curious.
Yeah. Well, if you, so I've noticed that people with Venus in Pisces, for example, love to wear watery looking colors. So, and this is not across the, there are a lot of nuances to astrology, as you know. So a progressed Venus can change signs, and then we have like a new way of expressing ourselves. I find that people who have Scorpio Venus, we tend to wear a lot of black, red, like kind of simple colors. Virgo Venus tends to be very classic in their style, a lot of neutral tones, navies, things like that.
I could understand that. That makes sense. Okay. It's like really like their mood, right? It reflects their mood in a sense. That's their style. That's really fascinating. I'm going to continue to pick your brain. I really am. But I want to learn like how you really got into all of this. When was the first time you were introduced to astrology, energy? When was the first time you really as well started exploring what this was to you?
Well, let me back up and say that in childhood, I always had gifts, and I was always really aware of spirit. I was really aware of the fact that I knew things that I didn't know how I knew. And I was raised in an evangelical, like a Catholic charismatic, actually. It's this branch of Catholicism that emphasizes working with the Holy Spirit. So I was raised in this environment where, mystical experiences were a part of my everyday life. And when I was about 14 years old, I went to the library and discovered astrology. I found a book at the library, and it opened my world. And so I proceeded to read every astrology book that I could access, that I could get my hands on. And then that led me into learning more about numerology, learning about, I checked out every book of the New Age section. And eventually that led me to, a bookstore, a metaphysical bookstore, where I discovered my teachers. And this was the 90s, the mid 90s. So this was a really underground thing. I was living in the Midwest. Like, this was not something that you talked about. You just kind of had to stumble upon your teachers and learn. And this was right around the time when the internet was starting. So I really grew. It turned out my astrology classes, the metaphysical bookstore, was a spiritualist church on the weekends. And so I started taking development classes, learning mediumship, while I was learning astrology. And then that got me into the Western esoteric tradition, reading the books of the Theosophists, reading about Hermeticism. And so it kind of, that I really put astrology in the category of energy, of working with energy, of Hermetic tradition, of those kinds of ideologies.
Did you grow up connected to a place with the Theosophy Society then?
Not directly, but a lot of my teachers, my early teachers, were a part of those traditions, and really spiritualism was the big place for where I did a lot of my training.
Gotcha. Did you grow up in a town or city that was more conservative or more, I guess, open-minded, that you had these books accessible to you, or was it really just kind of like a niche in the town?
It was a pretty conservative. I grew up in St. Louis, so it was pretty conservative, very Catholic town. And really it was, I mean, the St. Louis library had this one shelf, the New Age shelf. And it was like one little shelf, and it was only halfway full. And so there weren't a lot of resources, but there was this bookstore that Pathways was what it was called, where I found more resources, found that had everything. I spent a lot of time there.
And what were your first, I guess, loves with astrology? What did you really connect to, whether it was like the houses or the nodes or like specific signs or planets?
I think more than anything, I loved looking at a chart. And I started with looking at my chart and seeing, really seeing a connection between my life and the entire cosmos. And so what attracted me to astrology at first was just more of like a philosophical understanding that each of us is so unique that, planetary cycles repeat themselves, one cycle every thousand of years. So every chart has special characteristics, has its own unique imprint. And so I loved that. And I loved being able to gain a sense of self-understanding and self-acceptance from that. Some of the things that I'd considered my faults, I was able to look at my chart and realize, oh, this is actually a part of a bigger picture of, what my soul came here to learn. I loved that aspect of it. And I also loved just like the geometry of it. I loved seeing, I'm a Libra, so everything's a relationship. And so I could look at the different points in the chart and see the different relationships between the different planets and the different chart points, and see the different aspects of myself and how they get along, or other people. I really quickly started with charts of everybody I knew. And so you can see the inner workings of individual and what makes them tick, what are the big fears, What are the childhood experiences that they are growing beyond and that have shaped them? You can see every relationship in your childhood experience in a chart and see how that informs your beliefs about yourself and your experience of the world. So that's pretty amazing about astrology.
It is pretty amazing. And not that it's always one size fits all, but you can actually, I'm sure, see, depending on people's like careers, what they've chosen based on how many planets are in their houses, or this and that. And it's kind of like, okay, this is pretty awesome, right?
Yeah. You can see vocation, you can see relationships, you can see money. That's a big one.
Yeah.
How you earn money in a chart is very different from how you name for yourself. For example, they're different houses, they're different planets, and how you make money might be different from the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. These are also different parts in the chart. And so when you're going through, this is how it's useful in your everyday life. If you're going through a challenge, maybe you want to, quit your day job and start your own business. You can look and see the different facets of your chart that relate to those questions on your mind. And you can gain a sense of understanding about how to affect change in your life. So we don't ever look at our charts as limiting. It's not like you're stuck this way. You're a Leo sun. You have to fit inside this box. No, you say, oh, this is my Leo sun. This is how my Leo sun expresses itself. And here are all the different shades. I love the colors, the painting that you have behind you. Every aspect, we have all these layers and layers of symbolism and meaning in each point in our chart. And so we can choose a different way to express the aspects of our chart or the aspects of ourselves, given the way that we grow and evolve in our lives.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen somebody, because you said they're, what are, let's say, what we consider our setbacks or weaknesses actually can be looked at another way within our chart. Have you ever seen like a chart that is quite like complicated? Like for instance, like let's say they are north node, Pisces, south node Virgo, and then their Mercury is in Virgo, so they have to let go of their head, but they're going into Pisces. And then what if they're like Saturn is Virgo too, and it's like, what if they have so many signs and like all these different placements that are the same, but they're actually also contradictory towards one another? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, good question. Well, every chart is so unique, and what you're talking about when multiple points in a chart are all together, we call that a stellium. And it's a concentration of energy, meaning you've got a lot of, like the example you used, you've got a lot of Virgo in your chart. And so, so you're here to really work with that sign, to fall in love with all of the challenging aspects of that sign, and then also to know that those are your gifts. Anything conjunct the South Node, these are natural talents. This is like your comfort zone. So, how do you grow beyond it? How do you take the challenges of those signs and work with them through your spiritual practices, through the way that you live your life, through the choices that you make? And how do you take the most comfortable, the most productive aspects of those signs, productive in terms of this really flows well, this is really a strong suit, this is a skill and a talent. How do you take those aspects of that sign and make the most of them? And I think that there are a number of ways to do that, and understanding how to work with your chart, learning about the symbolism of astrology, you can get there. It gives you more power to shape your destiny.
And I guess like I'm in the theme of challenges for a second here. So with shaping your destiny too, and understanding even more parts of your chart, what do you think about somebody's like Lilith dark moon sign? Because that is interesting how it comes out in people.
Yeah. Lilith is, there are a few points in our charts that represent power and how we express power in our relationships and in our lives. And Lilith is one of those points. Lilith is...
Oh, it froze. Let's see if we can get her back. It's the energy of Lilith. Lilith can be a little chaotic, everybody. So as soon as we got into it, let's see if we can get Rachel back. From what I know of, Lilith is kind of our, let's say it can be a little chaotic or challenging, and certain parts come out in our personality, and it seems almost like a little intense or destructive, kind of, with all of the energy that can surface in that certain category. Like maybe someone with a Lilith and Leo, they're just like a little bit too much of a showman, and they like a little too much attention. And it attracts them to, let's say, seeking out things that aren't best for them, because they like the spark of they like the shine, and they feel like it's good. Or like, let's say a Lilith and Virgo, overthinking to their detriment, being so cerebral, they're stringent, right? And they really box things. Let's see if we can get her back. Let's see if we can get her to come back. It's the nature of the internet sometimes. I remember I was on the road. I wonder if she's on the road, but I was on the road just, 3 weeks ago, and I was in a hotel room, and my hotel internet dropped, and then away I went, and I couldn't come back. So it's the nature of the future. That's okay. So we have some questions for her if she comes back. And we will talk about it. So someone's asking even just what we shared. So Lilith is what we're struggling in this life, the bad things about us we have to work on. It's not necessarily like the bad things about us. It's just when we kind of like shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes, and be like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? It's kind of like your own worst enemy kind of energy. Again, Rachel could explain it way better than I could, but that's the way that I see it. So you're going to have certain behaviors, and they don't necessarily fully serve you. So it's not the bad things about us. It's just we have a certain type of energy that can be a little bit difficult with how it helps us. All right. Yes, you're back. You're back. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. You're probably
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
I'm so sorry about that. My internet went out on that side of the house. This side is fine, but that side went out. So
that's quick thinking. What sides of the house is still have internet? That's great.
Yep. So just as we're talking about Lilith, it's kind of appropriate.
It's very fitting. Exactly. That's what I was saying. Very, very fitting. And I love your dog, Dove.
Yeah.
She's here.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Dove decided to take the opportunity, since I'm in this part of the house, to jump on my lap and join the show.
Hi, Mom. Right?
Yeah. Like,
when I moved to a different part of the house, I had my animals flock to me like, oh, you're done? Like, no, I'm sorry, but hi.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's fun.
Yes, right. An ode to the energy of Lilith. Can we, speaking of which, people are asking more about it. Someone was asking, so Lilith is like what we're struggling in this life, question the bad things about us and what we have to work on. And she's asking about what more that is, and that's like kind of her questioning in that.
Yeah, I want to talk about Lilith, because Lilith is one of my favorite points in the chart. So no, Janice, Lilith is not the bad aspects of yourself. It's not what you're struggling with. Lilith is actually a point that represents our sovereignty, our sense of self, and ultimately our power. So Lilith is very connected to the wildness inside of us that wants expression. And she's also connected to magic. So the part of us that feels compelled to go outside and take a walk, the part of us that wants to be involved in this kind of work, to understand that there are things beneath the surface worth paying attention to, and that those things, our psychic abilities, our spirituality, our psychology, that those things are actually fundamental to our life experiences. So Lilith is that part of us. She's the part that won't be tamed. So in patriarchal culture, yeah, that's the bad part of us. That's like the part that won't obey Adam, if you think about the myth. But
Yeah.
those of us, as the world changes, I think Lilith is coming out more as an ally instead of as an adversary in our charts. And so I actually love Lilith. My Lilith, everyone's Lilith placement represents where they have hidden powers. It's like your what's it called? Your like your superhero self. Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that you put such like a very powerful, again, bigger picture that was kind of what we're talking about today, spin and awareness on Lilith, because if you look into the stories of her, like connected to the Garden of Eden and her inception, like biblically, of how she's connected, it's like right, she can't be tamed, and she's really connected to the earth, and there's purpose within her. There's a bigger purpose, and it didn't quite fit in what was expected. So I like you talked about she can't be tamed, right? I see, and do you see in other people's charts that sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit because we kind of we can't be tamed, and we find ourselves doing some things like, oh, maybe that was too much, right? That's how I see people's Lilith come out, like more like chaotically, but it's beautiful that you describe that it's like very magically guided and directed to. It's very like, the unbridledness is actually a very positive thing as well. I love that.
Yeah. It's what allows us to, it's the part of us that wants to, that yearns to really be connected to the whole, to be connected to nature, to work with the forces of nature in, co-creating our life experiences. And it's that independent streak too. Independent even in terms of, people who have really prominent Lilith placements might not be in traditional relationships, monogamous relationships. Like you might need something different. Or you might not be comfortable working confined in like a 9-to-5 corporate job. And so I think that when we can look at, all of our astrological signatures as like without judgment, without, Saturn's bad and Mars is hard. And when we can like remove the judgment, then we can see the power in even the most challenging aspects of ourselves, or see the gifts and blessings in, the most difficult experiences and traumas that we face, because those traumas are right there in our charts. And all of our charts show our soul's ultimate desire. It's like, what did our soul come here to learn? And so we incarnate through this solar system, through all of this, the inner workings of the solar system, and through the cultural framework that the planets represent. And our souls take all of that energy and make meaning out of it, and live our life experiences. But we can't deny that our souls want certain things. That's reflected in our charts.
So do you feel like people's longing that's connected to their Lilith, is it connected to their Neptune, their hopes and dreams? Where do you find people's longing showcased in their charts?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's multifaceted. I think at different times in our lives, when different planets are activated by transits, and a transit is the aspect relationship between what's happening in the heavens today and your birth chart. And so at different times in our lives, certain planets become really activated because Neptune is aspecting them, because they're going through a Pluto transit. And so those desires shift over time. Like you might go through a period where you want a relationship so bad. Like you're yearning for it. And then you fall in love. And then the yearning for a baby starts to happen. And it's like, let's go ahead and create this. I think we can look at our charts and see the innate desires. We can see, Saturn is going to want something very different than the moon. Saturn's going to want us to make a commitment and for us to get serious about our lives and for us to get to work. And so when Saturn's activated, like it is right around the time of our 29th birthday, when Saturn's activated, we start getting really serious. And so our desires come from that place. Our moons have their own sets of needs. It's like love. I want to be held. I want to be nurtured. I want to be seen. And so your moon is going to need something very different at different times in your life too. The moon is very active, most active when we're babies. So that need for nurturing, that need for love, like that's the moon right there.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That you're making me think about some things. I'm like, interesting. Wow. Okay. Can you talk just a smidgen more about how our moon is the most active when we're babies? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah. Well, the moon transiting moon moves around the entire zodiac every 28 days. And our natal moon is the point. It's the pre-verbal aspect of ourselves. So it relates to our deepest needs and how we get those needs met from our caregivers, from the people who hold us and feed us as infants. And so the moon shows us how we got that attention. What did we do? So your moon in Leo, you probably just had to smile. You probably just had to you had to kind of draw that attention to yourself.
I think I gave it my best shot with a smile. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. And so the moon is going to be the transiting moon in those first few months of life. We are developing the neurological synapses that create our whole life experiences. And the transiting moon is aspecting every single point in our chart for the first time ever. Now we go through the lunation cycle every month, and it's like, we go through these cycles and they're just second nature and we don't draw attention to them. But when we're infants, we're experiencing everything for the first time. So when that transiting moon is in Leo and it's going back over your Leo planets, and your Leo moon, you're moving through a cycle and that's shaping who you are. So over time, we start Mercury communicating. We start Venus developing relationships, meeting friends. We start Mars playing sports and figuring out, what do I want? Mars is the terrible twos. That happens, Mars cycles repeat themselves every 2 years. And so we start to experience the activation of our personal planets more and more as we grow. But in those first 7.5 years of life, we're going to get to experience all of the planets from the moon to Saturn in a concentrated way. And then, that really defines our egos and how we express ourselves in the world.
Wow. It is truly fundamental then, like those transits and how often they influence us. I guess that's something that I've never really understood, but you talking about it, I'm having like a lot of aha moments. I'm like,
Good.
oh, yeah. I've never really paid attention to transits, but now I understand how powerful they are.
Wow. Oh yeah, they are. I always say that astrology is the least woo of all the woo modalities, because really, planetary cycles repeat themselves over and over again. Like I said, a full Mars cycle is every about 2 years. The sun cycle is a year. The moon is 28.5 days. Saturn is a 29-year cycle. So we can look at different points within that cycle and see how those points relate to our chart. And then really we can see how those cycles, see the themes presented of those cycles looking backward, and get a sense of how those themes might play out when we go forward. So it's really kind of like looking at an economic cycle, for example, or looking at a weather map. I mean, they're really kind of set in stone. And this is one of my favorite things. I'm teaching in a transits class starting tomorrow, actually. And this is one of my favorite things to teach because it's, so predictable. And I know people don't want to use the word predictable, but you can see the manifestation of different cycles by looking at how they've interacted with your life and what they've activated in your chart.
No, the more technical you get with these systems, the more it really is not woo-woo. I mean, you're dealing with geometry, for goodness sakes, with lining everything up. And when, maybe if you're just going into just the basics, like a couple signs, a couple there, you're going to have a lot of inconsistencies. But when you're as in-depth as what Rachel is doing and make it a lifelong love and passion, it just lines up, and there's cycles to track, and it's very systematic. So I want to showcase that to people. The way you said, it's really not so woo woo. It's true. So people are saying hi. So Jessica says hi. Chaley says hi. Taha says hi. And yes, you have a chance to ask a question, Taha, if you want to. And if you'd like, Rachel, would you like to take some questions right now?
Sure. I'd love to take some questions. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I also want to say that, we're talking about it in a complicated way. I've been doing this for, 30 years, professionally for 17 years. I can talk about it very technically, but anyone can learn what these cycles mean in a very simple way. And you can start working with it in your life right now in real time. That it's actually really, there's a poetry to it that I think anyone, even if you're not technical and you can't stand geometry, that you can learn, because we're all connected to these cycles.
Oh man, you're stimulating my brain again. A lot of people ask me, and maybe people ask you too, if there's a correlation between numerology and astrology, of how you can work with overlapping charts. They're different, but they're similar. And so what's your take on it really quick, if I may ask?
Yeah, well, there are definitely relationships, and it's all that sacred mathematics, sacred geometry. And there are planetary correlations to each of the numbers. My really good friend, Bonnie Gillespie, does a great job of merging the two. And she's the one who really opened my eyes to numerology, actually. I've always kind of been curious about it, but she's the one who made sense in terms of planets. So for example, Venus would be the planet 6, or the number 6. So Venus relates to 6. Saturn relates to 8. Jupiter is 5. Okay. And I think, no, Jupiter's 3. I'm sorry, Jupiter's 3.
I can see that more.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, yay! Chaley knows Bonnie. Yeah, Bonnie's awesome. She's a really good friend of mine. We teach together, and she's great.
Cool. I'm gonna have to look her up. I'm not familiar, and this is why it's so great. I'm like, oh, okay. Share, please share. So I'll look into Bobby. You have me excited that she bridges the two, and she has passion for that.
Yeah, she's great at it.
One of the questions was that people were asking about Lionsgate, because that's been happening very recent. The 8/8 happened just a couple days ago, but when did Lionsgate open? Was it the 6th or something? What day it was? I don't know actually.
Yeah, I think it's the 8th. So Lionsgate is not astrology.
That's great. That's a great myth buster. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's something that's like you said, it's relatively new in like people have made kind of a big deal of it because of the numerology of 8 and 8. And 8 being manifestation, being bringing things into fullness, but it's not astrological.
Okay, cool.
There are, I mean, there's definitely, during August we have we have the Sirius dog, we have a lot of fixed stars, Sirius, the brightest star. The dog days of summer are based on that constellation and the visibility of the constellation, but that's something totally different from the Lion's Gate. So yeah. So I'm one of those people who doesn't really, and this particular, I think it all started on I can't remember when it started, but I know a lot of people talk about it, but it's not astrological.
Okay, very cool. I think that's great that you talk about that because, I guess like a commonality that I can bridge with that is people talk about angel numbers a lot and it's based on numerology, but it really has nothing to do with numerology. It's kind of like a concept like that. That's really fun. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Are there any other like really big, I guess, things that people talk about that don't have much to do with astrology that you can also think about? I'm curious now because I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Nothing's coming to my mind off the top of my head.
I put you on the spot there with like, I think the Lionsgate kind of myth that is big enough to suffice. I think that was a good one. Fascinating. Okay, so may I ask, do you think the inception of that like myth comes from kind of I guess what Leo energy can bring to a person's life and activating that? And people just are wanting to bring the Leo energy into their life, or the abundance or joy.
Yeah, I mean, I think on one hand, spirituality really took a turn from the time when I started working in this way. Just in the last, in the time that Neptune's been transiting through Pisces, it really started to take a turn, and probably after The Secret came out, into everything in our New Age spirituality has taken a turn toward manifestation, toward what can I create in my life. And I think that that's really amazing in terms of our evolution, in terms of us feeling more of a sense of our own power to create and shape our lives, and especially people who have been underrepresented or who have not really experienced a sense of power. So I think that this is a beautiful evolution. But I think we can put too much emphasis on manifestation as an outcome, and really the point of all like spiritual understanding. And I don't know, maybe you feel a different way, but I think rather than looking at spirituality being a means to getting something you want, I think spirituality is about an internal shift that opens us up to more love, to more compassion. And when we have more love and compassion, then we have better relationships. Then we do have a better experience of abundance in our lives. We do feel more peaceful, more graceful, more of a desire to give back and help others. And so I think that's something that's ultimately we're moving more into. And so I think things like the Lionsgate talk about manifestation, and it's important, it's good. But I think if we're always keeping that bigger picture in mind, then we can really use that framework for anything that we are manifesting and anything we are bringing into fruition.
Absolutely. I mean, we're just experiencing a series of shifts and cycles that teach us more about ourselves. And I think some people can identify some of what those cycles and shifts represent. And so it's almost like some are more externalized and talked about, and so they can kind of make their spiritual transformation tangible in those moments.
Yeah, really, beautiful.
Every cycle is just as important and powerful, honestly. But I love the way you put it too as well. Okay, so people are asking about, interesting. So I want to do this one first. So someone was going back to like Lilith, and they wanted an example of, let's say, how like Capricorn would be in Lilith, or how it plays out in your houses.
Yeah. So if we think about, that's an interesting one, actually, Lilith and Capricorn, because with Lilith and Capricorn, your wildness needs a structure. You're like, I think that there's a real connection with the earth, with Lilith and any earth signs. So you could try things like, working with herbs in your ritual practices, planting things. Like these can all be ways to bring your Lilith into its fullness. Also, you might be one of the people who creates a mystery school or who goes to a mystery school. So, I always think about Lilith as bringing us into the mysteries of of occult matters, of things beyond what we can see or on a tangible form. And Capricorn is very practical. So find a structure for experiencing your spiritual power, your magic. And then in the different houses, I think Lilith through the different houses, like in the second house, I think is the example. How can you think about what those houses represent, and then ask yourself, how can I bring magic into this area of my life? So second house is money. How can I bring magic into my experience of abundance? And for you, it might be rituals. It might be, working with other people. It might be selling your talismans or selling your products and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah, that second house, people are always curious about that money house. It's funny. Okay. So someone is asking as well about crystals. Do crystals help with your abilities? I guess they're curious about the other modalities that you bring in that you work with besides astrology.
Yeah, great. I do. I work with a lot of other modalities, and I love crystals. I work with crystals. I think crystals are our friends and our helpers. Do they help with my abilities? Sometimes actually holding a crystal when I'm doing readings or when I'm in a meditation can be really grounding for me. And so I'm looking I have a whole desk full of crystals here. So I think, I think they do. I think they absolutely do. And also the energy. So with crystals, here's something kind of fun. Anything in our environments has an astrological correspondence, and we can assign meaning to it. So for example, I have this green moonstone right here. And when I buy a crystal, I clear it with salt water, unless it's a selenite or unless it's like halite or something that will dissolve. But I, put it in some salt water. I put it under the full moon. I clean it, and then I assign it a job. So this is my moonstone, and as I'm, putting it in, I put incense over it. I'll, do a lot. I have a whole consecration practice, and I'll assign it a job of, this one brings me into my heart when I'm in session. So if I feel myself starting to like go into my head and get too, technical, I'll just like hold this and bring into my heart. And then it allows me to make a compassionate connection. So I use crystals all the time.
I love that. Assigning, that's beautifully put. That's what I do with my crystals. I assign them a job, but I never really thought it like that. I was like, oh, it just helps the intention. But I love, like, that's so well said. Someone's asking about Gemini energy. If you could tell them more about their sun sign in Gemini.
Okay, Gemini. Yeah, I don't want to be. I know everybody's going to want to know a little something about their sun signs, but since we have Gemini just as the specific question, Gemini is the sign of, like I said before, insatiable curiosity. And so for Geminis, gathering information, taking in reading, taking in podcasts, listening, like you are here to be a filter for information. So I find that with Geminis, you want to learn new things, you want to experience new places, and then you want to tell everybody about it. So there's a natural student and teacher inherent within the sign of Gemini.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has been talking about manifesting, actually. So we're going to go back to manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they've been struggling with manifesting things. I've been struggling, but manifesting things might not be too spiritual, but actually you can't switch it off. Why not to do so? Oh, okay. All right. I'm just making sure I understand what she's asking.
Can
Maybe
I
you see
actually?
it too.
Yeah. So Janice, I want to be really clear. I didn't say that manifesting was not spiritual. It is very spiritual. It is a spiritual process, and so I wanted to clarify if that came across the wrong way. It is incredibly spiritual because we're working with our innate spiritual power. And so I just really wanted to clarify that. And I think all of these portals to accessing our spiritual selves, whatever form they take, the Lion's Gate is one of them. I think they're incredible. And if they bring people into their own mystical experiences, then amazing. Every full moon, every new moon, I'm right there in a ritual process doing the same thing. And so I think that all of these are really valuable. And like you said, yes, absolutely, you can't switch it off. So doing it in a healthy way is really good. What I was talking about more than anything is that it's a gateway to understanding understanding those underlying spiritual principles, how energy works, things like that. That it's not the end. In fact, I actually talk about when I teach magic, or when I wrote a book about magic, I talk about how our intentions are all breadcrumbs on our journey, that they're not actually made to reach fullness. And so people who have a hard time manifesting, who are like, I'm not manifesting, it's like, I think if we can look at our intentions as being the gateways to deepening our own spiritual experiences, then we can take some pressure off of ourselves if we're not meeting our person when we said we want to manifest our person, or when things aren't playing out. We're always manifesting all the time. And sometimes even the things that we don't want happening in our lives are manifestations. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're manifesting on so many different levels. We're manifesting on the level of the soul, on the level of the subconscious, and on the level of the conscious will. And all of these are different points in our chart too. I mean, the subconscious is the moon. Our moon might want something very different than our sun. The sun is more of the conscious will. So I think it's more I think that manifestation is a process that is sacred, and at the same time, it is not it's the desired outcome is not the purpose. Manifesting the desired outcome is only a step that we take on our path to more spiritual enlightenment and evolution.
Another question regarding astrology. What are some of your favorite synastry aspects and or asteroids?
Oh, good question. So one of my favorite synastry aspects is someone's moon conjunct someone else's sun. This is lovely. So if your moon is in Virgo and your partner or your best friend's sun is in Virgo, there's like an innate sense of compatibility. Like, we understand each other. Now, other factors play into this, but I really like this one. That's one of my favorite ones. And then I also like, I work with the vertex, which is a point a point that's on the western horizon, and that is a kind of a karmic fate point. And whenever someone's sun is conjunct someone else's vertex, that is a relationship that no matter how hard you try to pull back from, or there's like an immediate pull. And that person is usually pretty involved in our own paths and how and our futures, really.
Can you talk about what a vertex is? I'm curious. I don't think I've ever heard of a vertex.
Yeah. It's a point. It's an actual point on, like I said, in the western part of your chart, which is the right side of the chart. And it is so there's the descendant, which is the 7th house cusp, or in the 7th house, depending on what sign system. I see Tracy's asking about Porphyry, whole sign, and Placidus, different house systems. You're going to see the descendant like maybe in different places within that 7th house. So your descendant is how you experience yourself in relationships. The vertex is more of a karmic point that relates to how other people experience us in relationships. And the relationships we're talking about are those deep, intimate relationships, like your partnership, your marriage, close friends. So the vertex is it's sort of this subtle influence in our charts that we don't always see or know about, or we don't always experience it within ourselves. But it gets activated in relationships, and it's really, it's really cool to work with this. And Shaylee's saying she loves the vertex. Yeah.
So the vertex, if I may ask too, so it's stimulated by other people within relationships, like with an ascendant sign or like a midheaven, other people can really kind of feel that outward energy of us, but it's not as influenced by relationships, correct?
Yeah. And it's so the ascendant is think about the eastern horizon. It's where the sun rises. And so the eastern, so the ascendant is that point of, it's like the face that we show the world and how we receive the world. So it's others' experience of ourselves. Actually, a lot of our physical characteristics are based on the ascendant and the planet ruled that this ascendant rules. So, I can look at someone and say, well, she probably has a Gemini rising. There are certain characteristics that relate to those risings. Hey, Deb, he wants to say hi. Yeah, so you're right. So that's usually the first impression that we give, the face that we show the world.
Okay, beautiful. And so the transit, the vortex, that's more not necessarily on first impression, but that's the overall relationship, what brings out. Okay.
It's actually what it's like a karmic point. So it's like what we're evolving more into in relationships. And we evolve into that because it's how our partners experience us. And so we become more and more like that over the course of our lives through relationships.
Another point someone's talking about is they're talking about their air placements, and I have in the air placements I have in my chart are Mount, MC, Juno, and NN, a North Node, I'm guessing, in Gemini, and my vertex in Aqua. I've never delved into vertexes, so this is all new to me. I'm reading it. Vertex and Aqua. I don't even know what that is. You do.
Aquarius. I think she's talking about Aquarius.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. The lingo. I was thinking it was like, oh, that's a term like Aqua. I've never heard of Aqua. Okay. All right.
The asteroid Aqua. I don't know if there is an asteroid named Aqua. There might be. Yeah.
Sounds exotic. There's some exotic asteroid names out there. She's asking about the destiny point, how it correlates with vertex. Someone's vertex. Is it pretty much similar? Or is it actually are there subtleties of differences?
Yeah, subtleties. So the vertex is a destiny point in that people, when we meet people whose sun or moon or rising or sometimes Venus or Saturn are conjunct our vertex, that's just another sign that this is a relationship that's fated to be, that like this is definitely it is a destiny point that plays out in relationships. So I see a lot of vertex in synastry. That's pretty wild. And sometimes when you're looking at transits to the vertex, that can be a time when someone significant is coming into your life. It's like one little point of a chart. It's not as like practical as Saturn, for example, which is going to represent your limitations, like what you're working on in this life, and sometimes your actual career. But it is a point that is like a fate is taking a hand in things. So it is related to destiny.
And I know you touched on it for a second, but did you talk about the differences? Because Tracy was asking the difference between how do you say
Porphyry.
that? Porphyry?
Yeah.
Porphyry, thank you. Whole sign and a Placidus.
Yeah. You got this. So Tracy, you are bringing up a whole, like, this is a long-standing debate. This is a big topic. I'll just say that there are different ways of calculating a house and breaking down. So the chart is a 360-degree circle. And there are different ways to break down that circle into different segments of a chart. And really what we're breaking down is a 5-dimensional space, time-space continuum. And so different house systems are going to bring out different features in our charts, and they're going to have different ways of that we experience ourselves. So I personally think, each house system is based on a set of calculations from different astrologers throughout history. So there are so many different house systems. But what I would say is experiment and explore. I personally I've used Placidus my whole career, but I'm starting to shift more into Porphyry. I use whole sign when I'm doing my horoscopes. And sometimes if I'm working with clients or teaching classes, whole sign's easier to use because it breaks things down into really simple mathematics. So I love experimenting with different house systems, and you're going to find one that really resonates with you. When you see your chart in it, you're going to think, oh, this is it. And I recommend that you do that. And then throughout your time working with astrology, try new things. Because you learn new things about yourself each time you see your chart in a different house system.
Wow. Goodness, there's some, I love how there was so much kind of like basic terminology covered and extensive and more advanced terminology covered. And so whether it's the transit class happening tomorrow or chart reading or another type of modality that Rachel offers, Rachel, where can people find you?
Thank you. It's RachelLangAstrologer.com.
And on social media, if they wanted to connect with you, could they find you through Rachel Lang, or are there other platforms?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm Rachel Lang Astrologer. Facebook, I think I'm Rachel C. Lang. And then Twitter, Rachel Lang 11. But Twitter, I'm like starting to dip into it more, but it's not my favorite. Usually I'm most active on Instagram.
Twitter is like the ghost lands of social media. There's not that much activity on it. I hear you.
My problem is I get onto Twitter and then like 3 hours have gone by because I've gone, and I mean, so it's like it's ghost land with lots and lots of ghosts and lots of activity.
Well, I'm glad you're active on there. I'm glad that people can still find you on there. That's funny. So gosh, I mean, we learned so much. I wanted to ask you more about your life. We're gonna, if you ever bless us in the future, love to have you on again so I could hear more about your backgrounds. Maybe it's that mysterious Scorpio energy of, you're making us want more. But thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. I always put it back in the guest corner if there's a piece of wisdom that you would like to part with, whether it's a poem, a saying, a random musing of what like you would like to leave people with.
Yeah, beautiful, very cool. Yeah, I think it's we have there's a Hermetic saying, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. And what that says is that we are not separate from everything else in created reality, that we are a part of it. And the microcosm is as the macrocosm. So the things that we experience in our day-to-day lives are happening to us on a personal level, but they're also a reflection of what's happening in the whole in some way, in some shape or form. And so I think that gives us a sense, that can give us a sense of peace, that the challenges that we're working through right now, the questions that we have, that we're not alone in that, and that somehow this is fitting into a bigger picture that we can't see right now, but that we're a part of. And so that's what I'll close on.
I love it. It goes back to the bigger picture talk at the beginning, and you're making me think of something I heard just recently from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was talking about the most abundant elements in the universe are nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, and that's all inside us. So it's all interconnected. We are the universe.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Beautiful words shared as well. Thank you so much for your light, Rachel. Everybody, enjoy your week. We will see you again on Friday for the reading show, and next week as well for a wonderful Wednesday with Khalees Simone as our guest. A warm thank you to Rachel yet again. Everybody go with love, light, luck, and don't forget to live. See you in a couple days and next week.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, Rachel. Thank you.